Mebius! Hello ladies and gentlemen of the internet, it's RJ, and today we'll be taking a look at the Bandai Tamashii Nations Ultra Act Ultraman Mebius Phoenix Brave. Starting with articulation, the head is on the basic ball peg, allowing him to look up and down as well as to the left and right. His neck is on a ball joint, allowing much more freedom of movement. The shoulders were incredibly tight out of the box, so please be careful with this figure. You do not want to break it. It is a web exclusive, so you'll have a bitch of a time trying to find a new one. Aside from the ball joint, there is obviously a hinge, although mine is a little bit loose. And do keep in mind that the armor will clash into the torso, so please utilize that ball joint. Double jointed elbows. Something that I find pretty neat, this is also on the Burning Brave version of Mebius. There are wrist swivels. This is namely to do the character's signature pose as well as his beam, although it does add a lot of expressiveness to the figure. Ball peg for the wrists, just like the neck, and they are very loose, or at least mine are, which makes swapping hands a lot nicer, but for posing it is kind of a pain. Ball joint at the chest, as well as the midsection. Pull down hips. Double jointed knees. Hinge at the ankles, as well as some minor rocking movement, and a hinge for the toes. So overall, a neat little innovation for the wrists, although the articulation is flawed in some aspects, namely the shoulders. Moving on to detail, this is probably the most disappointing aspect of the figure, and this is what I was most excited for, so this is gonna hurt. The head is not cast in a silver plastic, it is instead painted. I am not sure what the base color of the plastic is. I say it's painted because you can tell in person the paint does look noticeably more choppy than it does on the other figures. The lines are painted just fine, nothing too hideous. It actually looks really nice, I can't really give it too much fault there. It's painted very neatly in the patterns, the golden armor looks great. The arms are fucking atrocious, look at this here. I'm not sure if they cast the paint way too thin, but just from me trying to put the figure in its beam firing position, there are already noticeable cracks in the golden paint in the armor. This is unacceptable. The blue looks fine, although you can kind of see some mold release, or at least mold lines, excuse me. Here's another one. This is also inexcusable. Do you see this right here? It's even more noticeable on the other arm. This is not a part of the design. This is simply factory error, and it looks atrocious. This is a premium figure, and this is inexcusable. The golden armor on the chest looks fine. The blue patterns are very nice. But we have some very noticeable paint slop right here. Once again, this is ridiculous, especially for a figure of this price point. We have more molding lines and some golden paint slop on the leg right here. No paint on the knees, which is just bizarre. The golden armor looks fine. The paint, or at least for the majority of the red, is a very nice color. No slop. But yeah, this is ridiculous. Not only is this a premium release, but this is an already premium line, so if you're going to drop the ball this hard, I don't know what the excuse is for pricing the figure this expensive. Moving on to accessories, we have the basic chopping hands that come with every other Ultra Act figure, however these have very apparent molding lines. A pair of splayed out grasping hands, also with very apparent molding lines. Since as I mentioned earlier, putting the figure into the pose to actually fire the beam will damage the paint, so I'll just show you the hand by itself. It's a standard chopping hand like all the other beams. And as you can see, there is some very nice paint work, although disappointingly enough, there is not the larger version of the beam. The figure also comes with this effect for the Spatium Redoublizer, which can simply be pegged into the front, although do be careful as it's very fragile. You just simply slide it into the grooves, and you're good to go. Finally, and probably least interestingly, we have the flight stage adapter, which simply plugs into the figure's back, like so. And you can display the figure flying. For scaling, here is Mebius alongside a myriad of other Ultraman-related figures. As you can see, is the standard size of any other Ultra Act Ultraman. Moving on to packaging, we have arguably the most aesthetically pleasing part of the figure, since there is no paint slop on a fucking box. The box is a primarily reddish-orange color with yellow, blue, and white accents. Here you can see a vectorized picture of the prototype. Turning it to its side, you have a normal picture. Actually, it's the same one on the front of the box, but without the neat effect. Some more promotional shots of the figure. Oh look, there's the pose that damages the figure's fucking paint. No picture on this side, and there is no sticker on the bottom since Bluefin does not bring over web exclusives from this line. So overall, we have an incredibly disappointing release for one of my most anticipated figures in recent memory. The paint is incredibly lackluster. The articulation is flawed in many aspects, especially the shoulders, as they were almost breakable right out of the box. The accessory count is limited, although that's acceptable. However, some very interesting exclusions were made, such as a longer version of the Mebium Night Shot, or possibly even a holding hand for Armored Darkness's sword. Why this wasn't included in lieu of better paint apps, I am not quite sure. So overall, if you're a fan of this character and you absolutely cannot say no to getting this form, there is nothing I can do to stop you. I wanted to love this figure so much, but I just cannot bring myself to do it. This is a colossal disappointment, and now I am no longer sad to see this line go down. Hopefully the figure arts version will be a massive improvement, although I am not hopeful seeing as this is Bandai we're talking about.